Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here. I'm sure most of you know me. I'm Mitchell Brownson, the mayor of Cote-Saint-Luc, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. I hope most of you, if not all of you, have power and that we made it through this storm once again. You know, it's a very special day and a very special cause that we're dealing with, the Holocaust remembrance. It's something that, as mayor, I've been doing for a very long time, since mayor, and even in 1993 when I went back with my father-in-law, Eddie Yagodinsky, for the 45th anniversary of the uprising of the Warsaw Ghetto, and traveled back to my village where my whole family, from my grandfather's side, Goniec in Poland, were lost. And then when I became mayor, we started doing testimonials, and we do them every year. And then a few years ago, just before the pandemic, we put on the show Cabaret, and that dealt with those same issues in the show, and we had Holocaust survivors speaking to the audiences to sensitize them to remembering about all those that were killed, the 6 million Jews and those that suffered throughout the Holocaust. And today, I'd like to welcome you here on behalf of, first of all, Chag Sameach, Pesach Sameach, and Happy Easter to all of those of you who celebrate, and on behalf of the Montreal Holocaust Museum and the Eleanor London Cote-Saint-Luc Public Library, we're thrilled to have you with us on this afternoon with Philip Fishel Goldig. Now, I've known him for a long time. First of all, as the grandfather of my son's friend, Mikey, and also I know his son, I know his daughter, I know all of his family and him, and of course, watching him on stage perform in Yiddish theater for so many years has always been a thrill. And I've also, as you know, been involved in theater myself, and I've been in Yiddish theater, and it's really great. It's really great having someone who's so close to the community here with us to talk about the Holocaust. Now, Fishel is a survivor of the Holocaust who was born in Mielnica in Polish Ukraine in 1933. His story starts in 1939 when the Russian Red Army invaded his part of the country. He and his family are expelled from their home and were forced to live in another town in the region. A year and a half later, the family was allowed to go back. Several months after their return, the Germans conquered the entire region. The Germans declared that all Jews in his town and the neighboring towns must abandon their homes and go to live in a ghetto in the town of Borscow, which is 60 kilometers away. In this ghetto, he witnessed some of the atrocities that man was capable of inflicting on his fellow man. He lost many family members and his closest friends. Even today, he is still haunted by these massacres. 14 months later, they managed to escape from the ghetto, and then they lived in the forest for about 3 months. Eventually, they found a Ukrainian farmer, Nikolay Kravchuk, who helped to hide Fishel and his family for 2 years in an extended cave they had dug. They finally arrived in Canada in 1948, and he has lived in Montreal since that time. Fishel's message is that survivors have an obligation to tell their story to anyone who will listen, particularly to the next generation. Those who hear the story will become witnesses, and they will continue to retell this story. In this way, the stories will remind future generations that we must be vigilant in fighting hate, anti-Semitism, and intolerance. After all, the Holocaust was the greatest tragedy the world has ever known. We also have with us today Joseph Milo, who will be accompanying on the piano. He's the co-founder alongside his wife, Lucy Ravinsky, and conductor of the Musicians of the World Symphony Orchestra. This one-of-a-kind orchestra was formed when it was discovered that a great pool of professional musicians recently immigrated to Montreal had no opportunity to make use of their valuable talent in their new home. The MWSO was created not only to provide these new Canadians with the opportunity to engage in their main passion, making beautiful music in an orchestral setting, but to give them back to the professional dignity they had enjoyed in their homelands, and most especially to share their wonderful talents with the music lovers of Montreal. Over the past 12 years, the orchestra has entertained Montreal audiences with over 85 performances. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. This is where we're sitting. So I think I'll hand it over now to you, Fishel.
Thank you. I think the mayor told the whole story. Also, I have got nothing to say. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll repeat some of the stuff he said. My name is Fishel Goldig. I am a survivor of the Holocaust. I'm sure that you have studied the Holocaust and you've read about it and you heard about it. But today you will hear the individual testimony from someone who was actually there. Can anybody hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Please? Thank you.
It's not loud enough.
Okay.
Stop.
As a representative of the Montreal Holocaust Museum, I was asked to speak to you about my story of survival during World War II. I want to start by telling you the story of a 6-year-old boy who was coming home from school one day. He was attacked, beaten up, and called all kinds of terrible names, including Dirty Jew. They left him on the ground and ran away. When he finally reached home crying and told his mother what had happened and asked, why? Why? I haven't done anything wrong. My son answered his mother, you better get used to it. We, the Jewish people, have been persecuted for many, many centuries. And so it goes today as well. This is called anti-Semitism. It is comprised of ignorance, prejudice, and hate. And hate brings us a war. And the war brings us a Holocaust. And in the Holocaust we lost, as you know, we lost 6 million Jewish people, including 1.5 million children. Perhaps I was saved so that I could come before you and many other groups, young and old, to tell my story of survival. But let me say, by the way, that actually that little boy, that little story in the boy, that was me, of course. Perhaps I was saved so that I could come before you and to many other groups, young and old, to tell my story of survival. As you can see, at a very young age, I learned what anti-Semitism meant. I was born in Polish Ukraine, as the mayor said, in 1933, in the town of Mielnica. If you can see it, it's in blue. It's marked Mielnica. If you can, right. So, my story begins in 1939. In that year, there was a pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Germany and Russia. Both countries agreed to invade Poland. Russia conquered the Polish Ukraine and other parts, and in the east of Europe, and Germany conquered the rest of Poland. When the Russian communists came into our town, they started to arrest most of the rich people. Some were sent to Siberia and the north of Russia, and others were expelled from the town and forced to live in another town in the region. One day, when I was 6 years old, I remember that on a Sunday afternoon, when my parents and I were having lunch, the secret police known as the KVG and two other policemen carrying rifles entered our home. They told us that we were considered to be part of the rich bourgeoisie, the rich bourgeoisie class, and we had 3 days to abandon our house and leave the city. So we left our town and settled in a town approximately 40 kilometers away. We were not wealthy. My father had a small business that was making a living for his family. He was furious. He was crazy, mad, and he kept asking, "Why are you doing this?" And they wouldn't say. For what? Well, for what reason are you doing it? They wouldn't tell him. In any case, we had to go. So, before leaving, he wrote to Premier Stalin, of course, of Russia, complaining that a mistake was made in our case and that we should be granted permission to return to our town. Okay, well, finally we went to the other town. We settled up there. My father found some work. It was okay. 1.5 years later, 2 secret police came to the door. And they came very late in the evening, probably around 9, 10 o'clock. So they came to our house and to open up the door. My father went to them and they said, "Are you Baruch Goldig?" He said, "Yes, I am. We are here to take you, we want to take you to our police station. We have something to tell you." I can remember that my mother cried and I cried, because at that time people were just taken, when they were taken to police station, they were probably in prison or they were sent to Siberia. So so they came, they put him on a chair, like, you know, like somebody who was a criminal, and they told him as follows. By the way, we wanted to go, but my mother and I, but they wouldn't let us. So I remember when I was crying when he left, because we were sure we would never see him again. Now, at the police station, he was asked if he had written that letter, a letter to Stalin. My father said yes, he had to, because it was his letter, and it was quite obvious that it came because he marked it all down, who he is and so on. So he at the police station, he was asked if he had written that letter to Stalin. My father admitted that he had written the letter, and he was told that our case had been reviewed and And we had their permission to return to our city. And so we returned, but several months later, the Germans came in. Now I want to tell you a memorable occurrence that happened when the Russians evacuated the territory, and a few days before the Germans entered our town. So it was a time when there was no authority, no police, no nothing, no authority at all, no authority in charge of our town. And what happened is a rumor spread within the Jewish community that a group of young Ukrainians armed with picks and axes. Could you go to the next one, please? This is when I was 6 years old with my parents in front of our house. The next one. Yes, over here. So this is what happened. There was nobody in charge in our town. Rumors spread within the Jewish community that a group of young Ukrainians armed with picks and axes were gathered at the edge of town and getting ready to attack the Jewish sector. They wanted to kill the Jews and rob them of their possessions. A courageous Ukrainian priest went bravely and faced them, and he was determined to get this, make them stop. He told them it was a sin to do what they were planning. He told them it was that God would punish them for that evil that they were about to commit. Thankfully, he was able to disperse them and send them back to their homes. Then the Germans entered. They entered their town. Almost immediately afterward, they came out with all sorts of decrees. At first, they declared that some of the things we must do and what we cannot do. For instance, wear armbands with a yellow Star of David and the word Jude, which in German means Jew, printed on it. We had to obey the curfew, no traveling, no association in groups, nothing. Not long after that, actually a couple of months or so, the Nazis proclaimed that all the Jews in our town and in the surrounding towns and villages had to abandon their homes and travel to a ghetto in the city of Borscow. If you want to back one up, please. Yes, you see, yeah, you got it. Borscow is in red. If you can see it. Yes? Yes. Okay, so this is where our ghetto was, and we had to travel a day over there. To the ghetto, the city of Borscow, approximately 60, 70 kilometers away, taking with us only what we could carry. So everybody, my parents and I, had valises. I remember having a small little valise for me as well. The ghetto was part of the town of approximately 10 square blocks surrounded by barbed wire. Next one, please. Yes, here you can see the ghetto, and you can see the wire, right? The barbed wire. Life in the ghetto was inhumane. Inhumane. 4 or 5 families lived in one apartment. My parents and I lived in one room. And we were happy to have that. So, everybody was so packed in. It was this horrible kind of thing. I have to tell you just a little story of how that worked. There was, so we were on, I believe there was the 3rd floor or 4th, and there was just a corridor going right through from one end of the building to the other. At the at one end of the building, there was one bathroom, and this bathroom had to be for all the people that lived on that floor. So you can imagine how it was in the morning when everybody got up. You had to stay in line until you got in there. There was typhus, dysentery, lice and rats. People died from all kinds of diseases. But most of all, they died from hunger. Now, but that was still okay for most of the people. The Germans would choose a day, usually on a Jewish holiday, that they would call Aktiontag, which means action day. And actually, this was a killing day. On such a day, they would surround the ghetto with Gestapo, German SS troops, as well as the Ukrainian Nazi police. And everyone caught during that day was brought to the cemetery, where other Jews had dug huge graves. Huge graves. There, everyone was shot and buried in those graves. Anyone who refused to go to the cemetery, who tried to escape, was shot on the spot. During one of those action days, action days, on the Passover, like we have now, I lost my grandparents, 2 aunts, 2 uncles, and 3 cousins. I had to tell you that my grandfather, he refused to leave the house. And so they came. There was a guy, an SS guy, and he smashed him a few times on the head until he was dead. Now, in order to survive, most people had to find a hiding place. And these hiding places were sometimes behind fake walls, or in attics, or in cellars. And let me just show you what I mean. Okay, you have a wall here, right? You have a wall. Now you make another wall about 20, 25 inches or so, like that, parallel to this one. So now you have a space between these two walls, okay? And that's where people were hiding. The same thing they did, some of them did right on the ceiling, where they would, there was a ceiling, now they dropped for another ceiling, they made another ceiling, you know, also going parallel to the other one, and they had a space there to hide. But as I said, people were just looking for any place to hide. Because if you didn't hide, you'd be dead. Because they were going around on the streets looking for Jews. And they were going around in the houses and in the apartment buildings. Okay. Now, so like I said, everyone caught during that day was brought to the cemetery, where other Jews had dug the graves, and they shot him and threw him into that grave. During one of those auctions in Passover, as I said, I told you I lost my parents, my grandparents. I also lost some of my childhood little boys that I was playing with them the day before. So in our apartment building was an engineer who built one of these special hiding places for people who lived in our building. So let me explain you how that worked. There was an outhouse, a toilet, in the back of our apartment. As you entered it, there was a wooden platform. A wooden platform, not this wide. This was removed, and from there, some of the men, including my father, dug a bunker, a hole in the ground. So they kept going down deeper, and then they made it wider, longer, and higher for all the people that lived in that apartment building. And every time we heard shooting, we knew this was going to be a killing day. And so everyone would run to the bunker and stay there until nightfall, when the shooting finally stopped. I remember once, after a massacre day, and when we came out of the bunker, I saw some of my childhood friends who were shot lying on the street. They were being picked up from the street and thrown onto a horse and buggy and taken to the cemetery. I want to tell you guys that this scene that I just mentioned comes back to me from time to time. We stayed in the ghetto. We stayed in the ghetto for approximately a year and 3 months, until the Germans decided to liquidate the ghetto. And finally, it came. We heard the shooting, and people began running every which way in order to save themselves. We heard that in one sector of the ghetto, some people were able to cut the opening in the barbed wire, you see, in the barbed wire, and they started to escape through the known Jewish area of the city, and then run into the fields and eventually to the forest. And so my parents and me and my cousin and his parents decided to try to escape through this opening. However, when we arrived there were many, many people pushing. Imagine there were thousands, and they had a small opening, probably like this, from there to here. Small opening, and everybody was pushing. The Germans who discovered this opening came with 2 trucks that had mounted machine guns on top, and one on each side of the street. And one there, one here. And as the people, and as the people were crossing that street, the machine guns would go ta 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 ta, and they were dying right there on that street. My father and uncle managed to cross the street and continued running towards the forest. My mother and I, my Aunt Rivka and my cousin Yulek, who was 8 years old, decided to return to the ghetto because to try to cross the street was a certain death. And so, when it came our turn, we finally got to that opening and saw what was going on the street. We started to look for another place. So we went back into the ghetto, and we started to look for a place to hide. Because my mother said going through that is a certain death. In back of one of the buildings, we found an old abandoned shed. An old storage kind of a shed where people threw out stuff they didn't want. Without doors and divided by a wall into 2 sections made up of wooden planks separated one from another by approximately 4 inches. Could you get the next one? One more? Yes. So this is the shed. As you can see, it is in the middle. It's not a wall. There was just planks with an opening. Let me go down to show you. So you had, this was going all the way from the floor to the ceiling, all the way up. The doors had been taken off over here. This was the entrance, okay? And so, since I'm here, I will tell you, we went inside that shed. My Aunt Rivka, with her son Yulik, went in this side. My mother and I went to the other side. I'm talking about the other side of the middle so-called wall. And we were under 2 mattresses. Okay? These are 2 mattresses here. And so, my aunt and my cousin took these were wash basins, big, huge things that people were washing laundry, made out of metal. You probably know what I'm talking about. Okay? And they turned it over. They turned those big wash basins on each other. Okay? My cousin Yulik, who was 8 years old, my aunt put him underneath that one, covered him, because they turned it over their heads, and just lie there very quietly. And my aunt did the same over there. Okay? So, actually, can you hear me without that? No. Okay. Well, I'm keeping it. Okay. And so they were hiding under these wash basins. Okay? Now, I was underneath this mattress, okay, lying on the diagonal. My mother was on the other one, underneath that one. Okay, she was hiding over there. Can you just show the next one for a minute? Yes. This is how we were lying. My head was there, my feet were down here, and my mother was just underneath that. Okay, and so we stayed. You can go back one, please. Go back one. No, too far. Just one. We just had it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So we were very quiet, lying, hidden under these things. It took we were there for a couple hours at least, maybe more. And 2 policemen, Nazi Ukrainian police. 2 guys came, one was standing outside over here, and the other one came in here. With his rifle, he went in there, on this side, and went to this basin, and just lifted it up with his rifle. There was my cousin Yulik, and he shot him right there on the spot. And then he went to the other basin over there, found my Aunt Rivka, and shot her right there on the spot. And then they came to the other side of where I was lying. And the same, that one guy was standing outside, the other guy came inside. Next one, please. So what he did, with his rifle, he lifted that corner. He lifted that corner with his rifle, like that. He didn't see me. Let me show it to you so you can understand better. Next one, please. Yes. You can see how he did it. Now he lifted that left corner, and he didn't see me, and he said to the other guy, "There's nobody here," and they left. I'm sure that you'll understand when I say to you that was the point where I almost died. You'll understand that too, I'm sure. And so They left. We stayed together underneath our things. Can you bring the one back, please? One more. Okay, we stayed over here, hidden under these two mattresses, my mother and I. We were here till nightfall. And finally, my mother said, let's get out. We have to leave. We can't stay here. And so, but I want to tell you something, that we were lying there, and for about 3 or 4 hours at least. And we were hearing the moaning of my aunt and my cousin, because they weren't dead yet. And so we were able to hear all that, because this wasn't a full wall, right? So these are all spaces, right? So you could hear everything that was going on. Finally, we left. Through that wire that was open, okay, but we came there to that area, and there was nobody there. And so we got out, and we were running or walking very quickly till we crossed that street with all the dead people, and we went we started running through to the Ukrainian sector, and it took us right to the fields, and we were there on the fields. For about, what happened that we also wanted to go to the forest. We wanted to hide in the forest. But it was just not to be, because we got lost and we were circling around in the fields, and there was a lot of things growing, and we were we were just walking from one place to the other, and probably we were there about 7 or 8 days. We ate everything that we could. So one day we were discovered by a group of about a dozen local Ukrainian boys in their mid-teens. Thank you. Okay, and what they did is that they circled around us, as you can see, and started to throw stones at us. I was bleeding, and my mother was bleeding, and I was pleading with them to stop, but to no avail. The farmer who owned that piece of land lived about half a kilometer away, saw from a distance that something was happening there. So he arrived on horseback and chased away the youngsters, saying, "You have no business here, and this is my land, and you're killing my crops, and get the hell out of here." And then he took us to his house, bandaged our wounds, gave us some food and something to drink, and helped us to get to the forest. For me, this man was not a farmer. He was an angel from heaven. Excuse me. We spent almost 3 months in the forest. We finally, no, I got the right page, sorry. So this guy took us into his house. He bandaged we were bleeding, and so he bandaged our wounds. He gave us something to eat and to drink, and then he walked with us and showed us how to get to the forest. And finally, we were in the forest. We spent almost 3 months in the forest and reunited with my father. Life in the forest was very difficult. There was little to eat. We had a lot of rain, and from time to time, there were German patrols looking for Jews who had escaped from the ghetto. So we were on the move every few days. Okay, you want to next one? Yes, that's the picture where we were in the woods. After some time, we started looking for a place to hide. We finally found a courageous potato farmer who agreed to take us in and hide us. Along with my parents and myself came my Uncle Leon, my Aunt Mina, and a 3-year-old cousin Eva. Can you show this, the next one, please? This was the man that was hiding us, and there was Nikolay Kravchuk, just a man with a gold heart, and just so understanding. And so the farmer, Nikolay Kravchuk, and his family had a house with an attic. Next one. Here is the house, and there you see the attic. On the left-hand side of the attic is where we were when we first came in. So we stayed in the attic where we were hidden behind bales of hay. Okay? But this was very dangerous, as the farmers' children sometimes played there, and even sometimes invited their neighboring friends up to the attic. So we had to find another place. It was too dangerous. On the farm, there was a yard, as you see the yard in front of the building. And we knew, at the end of the yard, there was a little hill. If you can see that hill over there. And this far, he dug a hole into that hill over there. Okay, as you can see over here, he dug this, and he made a cave with big stones on the floor, on the base, and round, like cave. Made a cave inside. Next one, please. Okay. Now you can see the cave that he made. There is the door on the left, and this is the potatoes, because he was a potato farmer, and so he would keep the potatoes in the winter for himself, and he also was selling them. So this was, you can see the potatoes. What we did, when we came in there, we took out these stones here in the corner. There were 3 or 4 large stones. And we started digging. Next one, please. Yes, so you can see, as you can see, we took out these stones. And we dug into it. When I say we, I mean my father, my uncle, the farmer, Mr. Kravchuk, and me. I was 9 years old, and I was helping out. Okay? And so we made a small opening over there in that corner, and just enough you had to crawl into it. Okay? And there, okay, so we were here in this stone. We were here in this cave that we made ourselves for 2 years. 2 years. In the first year, we were able to go out in the middle of the night and just to walk around the yard. That's it, just to take in some air. On the second, that was the first year. The second year, we couldn't go out at all.
Why?
Why is this? I'm going to explain to you. On the other end of this village, there was another situation like that as well. A Jewish family was hiding out in a farmer's house. But what happened is that the Germans found out about it. Somebody must have said something. And they came and they killed the Jewish family, shot the Jewish family right there, and then shot the farmer, his wife, and the children. Okay? And that's why we couldn't go out even at nighttime. Okay? So we stayed there for 2 years, and then one day, the farmer would give us food, bring us food and something to drink every day, very early in the morning. And then in the spring of 1944, the army came to the Russian army came to our town. But what happened was they were all over the area. But the thing that happened with the farmer, he came at the same time, more in the morning, very early in the morning. He opened up took out the stones and said, hey there, come on out. You are liberated. The Russians are here. And so we went back to our town. So after the liberation, we went back to our town and to our house, which had been abandoned, and slowly, very slowly, we returned to some kind of a normal life. From 1944 to 45, we lived in my town, and my schooling was all in Russian. In 1945, we moved to a city in Poland called Katowice, and all my schooling was in Polish. In 1946, we traveled to Czechoslovakia, where we found some smugglers who took us across the border into the American zone. Of course, we had to pay them, And the last part, we had to cross on foot from Czechoslovakia to the German that were in the American zone. So as you remember, if you remember your history, right after 1945, after the war, Germany was divided in 4 sectors. There was the American, the English, the French, and of course the Russian. My real life, in 1948, we finally arrived in Montreal. I just wanted to show you a few pictures from yes. Now here's what happened. Before the war, in our little town, there were about 3,000 Jews that lived. After the war, there were about 170 or so that survived. Those 3 boys, these were the other ones, were all adults, but there were only 3 boys there, and my little cousin, who was with us in the cave, but by then she was 5 years old. So that was the children over there. Next one. These were the kids that were on my soccer team in the ghetto, not in the ghetto, but in the sector, and and this was in the it was give me a minute, please. Sometimes when I talk a little too fast, I lose my things. Yes, so this is my father, and with me, I was 13 years old at that time. Now, when we came here, my life began. That was my real life began here. Everything before that were bad dreams and awful memories. We were very happy to be in Canada. Still, for the first few years, life was very difficult. I was 14 years old, and I started schooling again. I went to Yeshiva Merkas HaTorah, if somebody still remembers them, on St. Joseph. I took, so after I finished high school, I went to, I took some classes at Sir George Williams University, now called Concordia. And I also studied voice and music. I wanted to become an opera singer, but that didn't work out. I had several jobs, and eventually, for 50 years, became a businessman. I also fulfilled my desire to perform. For 50 years, I was on stage with the Dora Wasserman Yiddish Theater. A lot of people know me from there. I also performed in English theater. I did a little bit of TV and two films. And today I'm still singing, by the way. Okay. So, go on. Next one. That's what I looked like when we came to Montreal. Okay? Next one. Okay. So I am married. I have a beautiful family consisting of 4 children and 7 grandchildren. And this is my whole gang. Some of these guys are now much bigger. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you. I also have only one thing I would like to talk to you about. I have a message for you. Very important. We, the survivors, have an obligation to tell you and to explain to you what happened in the past and in the Holocaust and why it can happen again. And why it can happen again. We'll talk about it a little later. Now, as you have heard my story of survival, you have become witnesses. You are become witnesses. You now have the obligation to remember and to tell the story to your peers, your families, and the future generations. So for those young people that are here, this is your obligation. You have to fight them, and I tell you how. You must make sure that there will never be another Holocaust. Never, never. You especially, the younger generation, must confront the racists, the anti-Semites, the white supremacists, the Holocaust deniers, the haters, the ignoramuses. Confront them. Oppose them. And explain that we must live together, otherwise we will all perish. Furthermore, the story of the Holocaust is a reminder that we as human beings must not be bystanders to intolerance and in hate. All of us have the responsibility to be educated with a conscious decision to think, speak, and act with love and kindness instead of hatred. These are the values that we will continue to instill in our lives and into the future generations. According to Statistics Canada, Jewish Canadians remain the most targeted religious minority for hate crimes in our country. So it doesn't end so fast. Parts of the Holocaust are still here. And I'll just say something. We must eradicate this hate and prejudice. Therefore, it is important to speak about the Holocaust. After all, the Holocaust was the greatest tragedy the world has ever known. We must remember that Hitler did not start killing immediately. He burned synagogues first and broke store windows and destroyed Jewish property. So we have to remember that. What happened on January the 6th, 2021, when the part of the Nazis and white supremacists attacked the capital of Washington, D.C. in America, the land where the number one democracy was there. They went and they attacked it. So that's why we say, never again, never again We must be vigilant. And don't be afraid to confront them. You have to do that. Look what happens when you let them just live their stupid lives. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate all of you coming to listen to me. Just like I said in the beginning, we must tell our story. That's our obligation. Your obligation, I just told you what it was. And so we're going to sing a few songs? Yeah. Let me introduce to you my friend for many years. We worked together, we are personal friends and so on and so forth. And everybody knows him as Yossi Milo. I'm going to sing to you a few songs that are ghetto songs. These are people that wrote those songs in the ghettos and in the camps. And we have that I have a whole file of these. But we're going to do just a few, okay? Okay, we'll do it with the mic. Macht zu die Egele und kommen Fegele und kreisen darum zu Koppens von meinem Weg. Das Päckl in der Hand, das Haus in Asch und Brand. Wir losen sich, mein Kind, suchen Glück. Now close your little eyes, soon little birds will fly in circles anywhere. They'll build your bed, your head upon your hand, the house in ash and sand. We leave my darling child in search of life. Die Welt hat Gott vermacht und ist Nacht. Sie wart auf uns mit Scheude und mit Schrei. Wir stehen beide da in schwerer Schau und wissen nicht wohin es führt der Weg. God has the world withdrawn, the black night fills each dawn. She waits for us with horror and with dread. We both are standing here with terror always near, not knowing where or where our road has led. Men hat uns nacket bloß verjagt von unser Haus. In Finsternis, jet Himmels entfernt. In Sturm, Hagel, Wind hat uns begleit, mein Kind. Begleit uns in dem Abgrund von der Welt. Stripped naked we were thrown, erased from our loving home. The darkest night, it will open in the field, in wind and hail and storm, by fearsome currents borne. poured forth into the depths of the earth. In Sturm, Hagel, Wind, hat uns bekleidt, mein Kind, bekleidt uns und nehmen von der Welt. I just wanted to mention to you, as I said, some of these people, most of them, actually, most of the people that wrote those songs in the camps and in the ghettos perished. So let me do another one that was done by the lyrics by Katerjinsky. Did I get that side right? And the music was done by a 13-year-old Alexander Volkovsky. 13 years old, and he did that. Called Stille, Stille. Stille, Stille, lass mir schweigen, Qualm wachsen dort. They were planted by the tyrant, see their bloom appear. All roads led them, there are no roads back, and her father too has vanished, and with him our luck. Still, my child, don't cry, my jewel, tears no helping commands. Our pain-callous people never understand. Seas and ocean have their order, prisons also its border. Our torment is endless now and here. Now we do it of course in Yiddish. Stille, stille, lass mir schweigen, Qualm wachsen da. So haben sie verpflanzt die Sonne, grünen sie zum Blau. Es führen Wegen zu Bonau zu, es führt kein Weg zurück. Ist der Tate wo verschwunden und mit ihm das Glück. Stille Kind meins, weine Deutscher, es hilft nicht kein Gewehen. Unser Umblick will uns sollen, sei wie nicht verstehen. So bringe es euch die Armen, so euch die Füße zusammen. Nur zu unser Pein, kein bisschen Schein, kein bisschen Schein. Stille, stille, es quellen Qualm uns in Herz herum. Bis der Teuer wird nicht fallen, müssen wir sein Stuhl. Tränen geben sich, es ist ein Schmeichel, jetzt vor uns fahren. Soll der Frühling sein dem Säune, wie ein Herbstablatt. Soll der Qual sich ruhig fließen, stiller sein und hoff. Mit der Freiheit kommt der Tate, schlaf, mein Kind, schlaf. Wie der Wille aber freite, wie die Bäume grün beneite. Lebt auf Freiheitslicht auf dein Gesicht. Quiet, quiet, worlds grow stronger deep within our hearts. till the gates I dare no longer, no song must impart. Child, rejoice not, it's your smiling that is not allowed. Let the foe encounter springtime as an autumn cloud. Let the well go gently onward, silent be and dream. Coming freedom brings your father, slumber chill serene. As the river liberated, springtime green is celebrated. Kindle freedom light, it is your right. Bald Freiheitslicht auf dein Gesicht. I am doing it in Yiddish because I'm doing it in Yiddish as well as English. Not all of those songs have been translated, but I chose 3 that you can do in English too, knowing that not everybody had Yiddish. By the way, how many people here really speak Yiddish? Oh, few. All right, that's good. Okay. Well, maybe later, okay? Wir stehen bei die Wand, mit Herzen, mit geklemmte, mit der abgelosster Hand, wie bei einer weinenden Erbe. Es gucken Augen starr und sinken ein tief in der Weitkeit. Uns bleibt in Seele zart die Ewigkeit. Schwer zu sehen die Welt durch enge Mäuren, die Schein haben verstellt, die Ghetto teuren. Vermachst die Augen nur, dann siehst du alles wie nach Holm. Es erscheint wie auf der Burg die große Welt. Ghetto, dich vergessen will ich keine nie. Echo ist dein herzige, dein treuer Lied. Ich seh dort deine Tränen, dein Nummer, dein Pein. Ich hör dort dein Gebet, was wird sein, was wird sein. In deine Ghetto, gestlich ist mir eng, das Herz hat so übertrieben. Und Gott verstehen, es tut weh, doch ist mir auch so lieb. Ghetto, dich vergessen will ich kein Mal nie. We're standing by the walls with heartache, lost defenseless, with hands that hang and fall, just like the weeping willow branches. Is that dead? No? Into the void eyes stare, peering blindly through the denseness. Only pain is there, the infinite. Hard to view the world through dwellings, light the bell, yet when I shall close my eyes, then everything appears like dreaming, and you almost surmise the great wide world. Ghetto, in my memory you'll never die. My lament is your heartfelt and your mournful song. I see all your weeping, your sadness I see. I hear all your pleas, what will be, what will be. Within your ghetto alleys there is no room, sadness the heart sustains. Although I know that the love, the hurt, the love always remains. Ghetto, in my memory you'll never die. Ghetto, dich vergessen will ich kein Mal nie. The lady, this lady, said wanted to sing to hear the English came with the guest.
This lady.
Would you like to hear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fishel, tell me. Hi.
Way before.
gentlemen, that song, somebody tried to do it in English, but it shouldn't be done in English, because this became the song of the partisaner, and from then on it became worldwide that it's for when you have the Shoah evening, or you go to any kind of where people talk about the Shoah. So this is something that I do only in Yiddish. Okay, well, thank you very much.
A big hand for Mr.
Yes, we're gonna have questions.
Was brought to trial in Jerusalem. After hearing, I have never heard this testimony before. I worked at the Eichmann trial.
Oh my goodness.
I saw him sitting
In Israel.
one cave
In Israel.
in Israel, in Jerusalem.
Yes.
And there were witnesses testifying
Yeah,
what happened to them in the camps.
Okay.
I heard a capo speak, and I heard the witnesses from the United States
Yes.
testifying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no words.
Anybody else?
Do we have any questions
Do
for
you have
Mr.
any questions?
Oh, hold on. I'll give you the mic.
Not a question, but I just want to share. I just want to share some information. The young lawyer, Ben Ferenc, who perhaps you know, who did the Nuremberg trial. Sorry, the young lawyer, Ben Ferenc, very famous, who was the last living Nuremberg prosecutor, just died. He was only 27 when he went there
Right.
to try those Nazis.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else want?
Hold on. I'll give you the mic.
I wanted to know what happened to the farmer who saved you for 3 years.
This lady wanted to know what happened to the farmer. Well, the farmer and his wife were dead. You know, he was older than me, so they both died. But there were 2 sisters that remained. And what happened is that we right after the war, we went to our house, and we traveled around, as you heard, and everything was okay. We came here to care all the time. We had contact with them. We sent them all kinds of, sometimes money, sometimes packages and so on of some kind of coats and stuff. Anyhow, in 1955, approximately, the packages and the letters started to come back. And we didn't know, what the hell is this? What's going on? And we lost them. And because it was under communist rule and all that, so we couldn't find where they were. Now, remember, I had a little cousin who was 3 years old when she went into the cave. Today, she is, maybe you know her. Her name is Eva Anderman. And she is a geneticist, a world-renowned geneticist. Okay, so now in 2006, she goes to all conferences, even today, and universities and so on. There was a university about 60 miles away from where I was born. And so after she finished her talk in that university, she decided to go to see, although she was very small when she got away from there, but so she went to my city where I was born, and also went to the village where we were in that cave, and to see if she can find somebody that knows what happened to them. Anyhow, she went there and she asked people, nobody knew. Finally, she finds a lady that was 99 years old at that time. And she was, she knew about everything that happened. So yeah, so they started to ask her, where's our family? So he had two bad seasons in farming, and they were very poor, and so he got a job in the what do you call it? The coal mines.
Coal mining.
Coal, that's what it's, not coal mines. Coal mines, okay? This is my wife, she has the last word, always. And so they went to see this lady and started to ask, and she said, yeah, we know. She was living there with her daughter and a great-daughter, granddaughter. And they started to tell, well, yeah, we know everything. Gave us the address, the telephone, everything we wanted, even the email. And so we started again this story. After they came back to Montreal, one of my not nephew but granddaughter, not a granddaughter. No, yeah. So we rode away, it's not important. So we rode away to the Yad Vashem in Yerushalayim, because you know, I think all of you, that there is such a thing as the righteous among the living.
Right.
Among the nations. Righteous among the nations. We rode away and we told them what, we had to tell the story and everything that we did over there and so on. And they took a year and a half because they had to make sure that this story was true. And so after that, they accepted them. In 2008, they accepted them as, and they have, when they accept that, you also have, when you go to Yad Vashem in the back, you see these walls, and the walls with names, different nations and so on. So they gave them that, they put their names on that, on the wall, so they accepted it. Now they also make a ceremony for them. The ceremony is like this. If they can make it to go to Jerusalem, then they make the whole ceremony, and they give them all kinds of, papers, and just to say that they are really the people that were hiding us, the Jews. But you can do it in two ways. The two ways is this: you either go to Yad Vashem over there for those non-Jews. You have to go to Yad Vashem, and they'll make that same party for you and everything. Or you can go to the yeah, that's right. The country where I live in, to the Israeli consul.
The country where they live.
Huh?
The country where they live.
Yeah, of course, because where they live, and so yeah, they have to go to the Israeli consul. Or not actually. It's the yeah. It wasn't Kiev, and so. And so we were also invited to come. And so we came there on a Sunday, and they told us on a Sunday, there were 5 families that were honored that day. So we come into the embassy, and they tell us, yes, we told them who we are, fine. He says, go, if you want to see your people that were hiding you, go to the upstairs. We come in, and there's a big, huge hall, just like here, maybe even bigger than that. And there were people, Ukrainian families, because most of the actual people that did the hiding were dead by then. Okay, so we come in, we go upstairs, and here's that place, and I come in from this side, okay, from this corner, and I come in and I'm looking around, and I see there's a family there, a family here, a couple over there, and so on, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking in that corner opposite to where I came in, and I say to my wife, I think this is my family. I'm calling it my family, meaning it's my family that he saved us. Okay, so the older sister was my age. I remember when I went into the cave, I was 9 years old. Okay, so we're there, and she. So I recognized her, and I say to her, I think this is my family. And we start walking. As we start walking towards the corner, she recognized me. After 65 years, she recognized me. And so we met in the middle of the hall. Well, I tell you, the emotions were something not to believe. We cried, we laughed, we embraced. it was something special that maybe happens once in your lifetime. So that was something. Then we went with them to a synagogue where they were all handed citations and medals and stuff like that. And then the embassy has sent them tickets, train tickets. So they were supposed to go back after the ceremony. But I said, we were there with my cousin and her husband. So I said, no, we take him. So we took him with us to the hotel. We took him to a restaurant, a typical Ukrainian restaurant, and I think we drank about a barrel of vodka. Okay, so and they had a trio that was playing in the restaurant. And they got me singing there. I think I sang every song I ever learned. You know, I was, you know. Then the next morning, we rented a small bus, you know, and for 16 people, and we went visiting because you see, the two sisters that were there and their families, like children and grandchildren, they had never been to Kiev. And Kiev is a gorgeous city, beautiful city. Got about 6.5 million people. And so we went visiting, we got a guide and a bus, a little bus, and we spent the whole day. There's lots to see over there, but we did whatever we could. And we went to see all the sites. And then towards the end of the day, we brought them back to the station, and where they took the train. And there again, we kissed and hugged and all the thing. It was a marvelous experience for me and my family. It was really something. So that's to answer your question.
Thank you for joining us today. I just want to remind you, if you have friends who missed today's presentation, it is being recorded, so it will be up on YouTube soon enough. So please check on the Cote-Saint-Luc City's YouTube and the Cote-Saint-Luc Library YouTube. Thank you for joining us today.